Morning, everybody. It is March 23rd, Tuesday, 8 a.m. Call the meeting for March 23rd to order. And welcome, everybody. In Zoom land, can I get a thumbs up? Tell me that you guys can hear me at all? All right, thank you. Very good. First item of the agenda today, we'll approve the minutes for the meeting from March 9th, 2021 as posted.
I just made a little correction.
You made a correction? What'd you make?
Previous minutes we put if people were Zooming, they would, and I just couldn't remember because I'm on so many boards, but I think when you're Zooming, you put virtually.
Okay.
That's just to be consistent.
Very good. Any other discussion on the meeting minutes? Very good. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And they stand approved as printed. Item 2, approve the airport vouchers totaling $55,740.24.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Haugen. Aye. Cosgrove. Aye. Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. They are approved. Item 3, approve the individual vouchers for Mead and Hunt for engineering requests A through B.
Motion.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Haugen. Aye. Cosgrove.
Aye.
Engen.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. Thank you. Those are good and easy. Number 4, receive the February 2021 passenger report.
So I had our individual report that has employments, deplayments. So as compared to February 2020, we were down 52. Or year to date, we're down 52.5%. February of 21 versus February 20, down 47.4%. So it's pretty much tracking right with the national trends that we're seeing. If you go on the TSA website, you can follow daily boarding counts. I also included the February boarding comparisons for the 8 commercial service airports in North Dakota, and February of 21 versus February of 20, down 51.27% for the states. So a little better, but we still got a long ways to go in that arena. So just kind of FYI.
Making progress. Very good. Like I said kind of yesterday on that KFGO, I think we will have a big inrush of people coming back here towards the summer and holiday season this year. So everything that we can do to continue to prepare for those people coming back is what we need to start focusing on. So number 4 is complete. Number 5, discuss proposed update to the MMA purchasing policy.
So based on the direction from the last meeting, went through and edited that. Stacy's reviewed that and compare and contrast with the city policy, which is fairly lengthy. And I guess I don't know if you have any questions regarding that, but this is an updated version. As we discussed last meeting, the piece of equipment that we did purchase is a Texas state contract created through the Texas groups of things under the Texas code. They call it something different than what North Dakota does in the Century Code. Sourcewell is the other one. That's a political subdivision within the state of Minnesota created by the state legislature. So those always have been considered state bids in our process. Increase the amounts to kind of mirror what's in the city. Stacey, I don't know if you've got anything else or comments on what we've done.
I don't, other than it does this mirror the city. From my end, I'll probably just add the code provisions that allow the purchasing policy to exist as it does, both NDCC 2-06 and then Chapter 54, I believe.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
at the last meeting, Mr. Cosgrove had a question about it, and were you comfortable with the changes? Are you comfortable with the changes in understanding, or?
Couple things. I think calling out a specific group by name within a policy doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
What we have to do is describe the purchasing group, not name them. They can change that.
Well, they do, yeah, and Sourcewell used to be NJPA, so
It just doesn't seem appropriate in a policy to call out a name, and so you'd need to do that. Comparing to the city policy and then other federal procurement policies, we do not address in our policy, I don't think very well, sole source procurement. I think the city has a very effective way to deal with that. The other thing is, as we transition to our own accounting system, we will have to include, and it makes sense, and it's sometimes kind of crazy, but within your purchasing policy to have your fixed asset addition requirements for your accounting system, so that when you're buying equipment, you capture serial numbers, and that all has to be part of the purchasing policy that transfers into the accounting system so that we track all those.
Okay.
So, I know, Eric, you'd had the city policy sent, which had been recently updated and I think very good. I don't know why we wouldn't just claim that as our own.
The question I have about the sole source procurement process, it is on page 2 of the of it, and it says any sole source procurement greater than $50,000 must be approved by the airport authority. Examples would be to modifications of the security system, the HVAC system, equipment for the chillers and so forth. Would you like something other than that, sir?
Well,
Verbatim
you know,
from the city, other than adding the examples, it's verbatim.
sole source procurement is the most dangerous type of procurement you can do.
Sure.
And the whole idea of using taxpayer dollars is to make sure that we have free and open competition. And so I really believe that the scrutiny of a sole source procurement has to be higher than any types of other procurement. It's not to not allow sole source procurement, it's to allow the policy and the process to be encompassing and fair.
So you're not satisfied with the city of Fargo's then, because ours is exactly the same,
Well,
except for we're more specific.
If you go, they actually have the form that you have to fill out. for
But you don't
sole
put that
source.
in a policy.
Well, it's part of your policy, it's the appendix to the policy.
And I'm certain we probably have that form.
I didn't see it.
So what other changes would you like to see?
You know, I don't know why we wouldn't just use the city of Fargo and change it to Municipal Airport Authority. I really don't see why we need to reinvent the wheel.
I think that's what he did, because he just Sean just.
Well, that would include the appendices then too.
Some of these things don't apply to us. If you want appendices, we can, but that's entirely your call. Create what you want.
Mr. Chairman.
I
Mr.
think
Chairman.
the mayor sent me the cities, and I don't remember right off the top of my head, it's 18 pages. Ours is 2. I just don't think that we need to be as complicated to do the entire thing. So we are our own political subdivision, and we have the flexibility to take the things that that should apply to us and kind of leave the things that don't apply to us. So I'm not really in favor of taking copy and paste and doing the whole thing. I think that if you would like to add some appendices, we can do that. But I'm not in favor of just adopting the entire policy, because some of those things didn't apply to us. So, yes, General.
I'm in favor of saving money and equal opportunity for people to purchase or to sell stuff to us. But in the past, and I can cite a motor grader about 2 years ago, because of our policy, we saved $105,000 on the exact same motor grader that we could have gone downtown and bought. I am much more interested in the outcome for the citizens than I am for the process being followed. We can make the process cumbersome and bureaucratic and end up spending a lot more money. And my personal view is I'm much more interested in outcome. My view.
Okay. I like the addition of the sole source procurement that matches the city. I like the emergency purchasing authority of $150,000 in case we need to buy something in an emergency situation. The executive director can do that, and then he has to notify the chair. I like those additions. I thought that was value add. And then the piggybacking procurement based on other bids that have been done, we can jump on the exact same bid so that we don't just have to repeat the work that somebody else has already just completed. So I liked all of those revisions. What other discussion would you like to have about the number? Are the numbers all jive with you since they do match the city of Fargo?
You know, what we need to do with the numbers is just make sure that we stay in alignment with the federal requirements. And again, in purchasing in general, I appreciate you save money in a specific instance. The purchasing policy is to allow a free and open process. It's very rarely enforced in a formal manner, other than a protest to a bid. And so our policy is to make sure that we meet all the requirements so that we don't have protests, that we don't have perceived displaced bidders. And so it needs to be kept up and current. We just did a federal grant request, and we're asked for our purchasing policy. I don't know if any of your grant funding sources have asked to review purchasing policies here. But we found ourselves making changes to be in compliance with it. So it's a restrictive process. It's not intended to not let you do things you want to do. It's intended to have the process in place to justify what you've done.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That 2 years ago, that motor grader, I think, was the first thing I had voted on, one of the first things I voted on. And it concerned me, and so I went back and looked at the purchasing arrangement, and I believe I asked her, how can you do this without going out to bid? And honestly, I was shocked by the difference in price from cooperative programs of purchasing to just outright bid locally. The information that they provide, the opportunity they provide to save time as well as money is very valuable. And I think we owe a lot of credit to those entities for doing that. John, they do a good job of it.
Rick, this is not to eliminate sources, it's to have a consistent policy that we apply across the board. And the one thing, sole source procurements are very risky in that it's not a free and open process. And so we want to be very transparent when we do a sole source. Have we met the requirements for it? It's not to stop it. It's to make sure that we do it properly. And so the argument isn't how we get there, it's the process of making sure that we have done the things that we have to do. If we're ever challenged on a purchase, then it's really a pain on the backside. So that's what I'm suggesting they do.
Okay,
So we
so
don't-
adding the appendice for the form,
For the open,
for the
Sole
sole
source.
source procurement, would you like anything else added to it?
We might add the fixed asset addition form also. It just
We
depends
already have
how
that,
the
yeah.
accounting takes
Okay.
place, but
We've got one that we've used for years that we can attach. So if you don't want to call out Sourcewell and Houston Galveston Area Council, which are state bids, North Dakota is a cooperative purchase agreement. They call it a state bid. What do you want to call it?
just define what it is. And you know, to me, when you start putting specific things into a purchasing policy, you're now giving the appearance of a preference. I mean, we want all new pickup trucks to be Ford unless they can't be.
Yeah.
They want all pickup trucks to meet specs. If there's a purchasing group, you know, it's allowed, and it's described under the city policy as well, without naming. You just take that language to.
Okay. Can we make those changes and then bring it back for the next meeting? And then we'll take it up for approval at that point?
Okay.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on the purchasing policy? Very good, moving on. Receive and approve proposed contract for Mead and Hunt for Phase 1 of Airport Property Environmental Clearance Review for future project development areas.
Mr. Klein is here. Why don't you come up so you can
Mr. Klein.
be on TV.
All right, good morning. I believe everyone received a copy of this proposal in your packets. Is that true?
Yeah, maybe black and white on that.
And then there was a exhibit that went along with it. So I guess to refresh everyone's memory, we've been talking about this project for quite some time now. But basically, anytime the airport does a project on the airfield, or even a private individual puts up, say, a hangar on the airfield, the FAA requires a level of environmental clearance. And often what happens is, if the airport is doing the project, the effort to do all of that work is included in, like, say, our contract with the airport authority, and that's taken care of in there. But there are numerous occasions where a private individual will come to the airport authority and, request to put up a hangar, and they'll say, well, I want to start in the next month, and to get the environmental clearance, it takes a long time, and it can take field work for wetland delineations and cultural resource surveys, and those have to be done at certain times of the year. So if, for example, the request for the hangar construction came in January, we have to wait till a certain time of year before we can do the field work, and we have to go through the process. So it just drags out any potential development. So we had been talking with Sean and the FAA about, how do we alleviate that problem, and basically the outcome of that discussion was to do a standalone environmental project to clear certain areas of the airfield. And so what we had done is we had made this map, and the yellow areas on here are areas that have been previously environmentally cleared from past projects, as far as taxiway constructions. The cargo ramp is on here, taxiway Juliet's on here, all those types of things.
Can you turn it around so we can see?
Oh, certainly. The pink areas are what we're defining it as phase one in this contract proposal for priority areas that Sean sees as potential development within the next 5 years or so. So what this proposal would include would be to do all the field work, meaning the wetland delineations of cultural resource surveys, our time to escort those people around the airfield to get that done. And our proposal for that was $68,840 lump sum amount. And let me back up one step further. The reason that we were gonna bring this proposal forward to the airport authority back, say, January of this year. And in the meantime, we were trying to work with the FAA to call, like, say if Fargo Jet Center wanted to put up a hangar in this area, we were trying to make the case to the FAA that there's a connected action there. So we're trying to save the airport money, is what I'm trying to get at, is this connected action. So back at the time that the apron would have been built, the Fargo Jet Center apron would have been built, say in the 1990s, the intention would be to, at some point in the future, develop the area, put up a hangar there. So why are we it should have been environmentally cleared at that time. So now why are we spending more money to do more environmental work? And basically the FAA said, no, that construction was too long ago, so we have to revisit it. So we were trying to save the airport money, didn't pan out that way. So what they're saying is we have to move forward with this what we're calling phase one work. Now, what this proposal doesn't include is any subsequent work. So we don't know what the outcome of the archaeological survey is going to be, if they're going to find anything of significance. We don't know what the wetland delineation is going to find. And once those reports come back to us, then we can take the next step and say, okay, is it a simple categorical exclusion? Is it an environmental assessment, that kind of thing? And then come forward with a separate proposal to complete the environmental documentation. So I don't think any of these projects will turn into an EA or require any wetland mitigation, or there won't be any archaeological findings, but we don't know that for certainty until the reports come back. So
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sean, were these based on indication of interest over the past few years? Is that the just?
So definitely within the fence. I got a question about the 25th Street corridor in the area by the lagoons. Why is that in there?
That would be for the force main for the,
For the glycol?
the glycol line from
Alright.
FedEx. Both this chunk would be for the force main and this chunk would be for the force main. And the reason for, there's two, is we don't know what the route is gonna be yet, so the thought was, is let's take the opportunity to environmentally clear both sites, so once the, preferred route is determined, then we can.
I think the area around the terminal's gotta be expanded for here, for parking potentially.
Mhm.
And then I think you've already done it around the snow removal equipment building.
Yep.
And then
Yeah, that one.
I would say that the area of the alfalfa field down here for potential business park development and over here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, for the benefit of Commissioner, Mr. Cosgrove, can we explain the glycol line? Do you,
It's separate.
it is, but it's part of the planned expansion and
Yep.
maintenance of it, so.
So then, Sean, do you want us to table this for now and then come back and revise a proposal to add those areas in?
Yeah, because the map I've got on my desk doesn't match this one, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's some areas around the terminal, and I think the area that the Army Guard did for their facility, that probably could be in yellow if we get a copy of the Army Guard environmental assessment for the construction of their new
Correct.
facility as well. But yeah, because there's some parking expansion areas here that we want to make sure that we include as well.
Mr. Chair?
Mhm.
Jeff, how long is the EPA, how long is the environmental valuation? It's 5 years, is it? Or what is, could it be longer?
So, once we get the reports back from the wetland delineation contractor, those reports, and once it gets environmentally cleared, the wetland delineation is good for 5 years. So potentially if some of these developments don't occur for 5 years, the airport authority could have to come back and revisit that. So it's just the rules of NEPA.
I think the only one to add immediately, because this probably isn't going to be developed within 5, although if we can find a developer to do the business park, we've had some interest down here in the past from others, but
Right.
definitely this area here, for parking, surface parking expansion. But so that, that's not going to change much from what's in your proposal anyway.
I don't think so. I'll have to ask Jennifer on that.
Okay, so, you wanna add those, and then come back,
Sure.
for our next meeting?
Yep.
And then,
That I can do.
I'm a big proponent of, or, I like the idea of doing the work early.
I do
just so
too.
that it's done, and then we don't have, those obstacles in the way, so.
Yeah.
And then to communicate it to our, our vendors, whether Jet Center, and just, I think they know
Right.
because they've asked the questions. And,
The most urgent area right now, and we'll hear at our next meeting, is this area right here.
okay.
We will have a proposal at our next meeting for a major expansion here.
And just so the airport authority knows, Mead and Hunt actually did the field work for that Jet Center site in anticipation
Okay.
of that, so
So it worked out.
it just specifically to keep that project moving, because we did it last fall, because we felt that at the time that the proposal would come forth to the airport authority in winter, and then they'd break ground,
Yep.
first thing in spring.
Good.
Was that just phase one, or is it, other phases as well?
The field work was done for all of the pink areas on this sheet right here.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, from Mr. Klein? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7, receive and approve proposed request for proposals for professional employment, organizational services.
So updated the public notice that we had put out back in 2019, all of the attachments and stuff. I know Stacy had a chance to review. I guess it's here if you have any questions. It has to be to the form by 5 o'clock Friday to stay on this schedule here, and then to bring back before you. So I don't know if you have any questions about this or not. It follows the same spec that we had before. It's pretty in-depth, I guess, as far as what we've asked for your review in the past, so I don't know if you have any questions. If not, if you approve it, I'll get the ad to the forum, it'll be run, we'll put it on the website and see who responds, I guess.
Any discussion on the floor about the RFP for professional employment organizations? This would be for our HR and our payroll, and what other services do they do?
They'll do some benefits processing. At the next meeting, I tend to have the representative from Hayes Companies introduce himself to introduce the North Dakota Public Health Trust. They have a very short timeline to get information through Blue Cross Blue Shield and our employees to start looking at setting up the health insurance program. We talked about a May-June timeframe to get that. The city has to release information in order for them to do it, so I'll have John Heath from the Public Health Trust participate in our next meeting if he's available.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think we've relieved any or concern from the city about releasing that information to a health vendor. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
That's been dealt with?
It's been dealt with. I'd make sure it's in writing though too. Do a formal request. I mean,
I
whether it's
believe
an
Judge
email.
Klein dealt with that in
Yeah,
our conversations.
Correct, it is a part of the term sheet, and I think now that the separation's been announced, that will trigger those real steps.
okay,
And the city is more than willing to cooperate.
okay, good.
And again, for the benefit of Mr. Cosgrove, that was part of the process needed for any vendor, specifically North Dakota pools, to look at the use information for healthcare.
It should be fairly easy because it's Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Yep.
it's with Hayes Companies,
Yes,
it's the
it
same
is.
exact people that are
I'm
working
just a
between the
paper
two.
trail person, you know.
Okay, so we get a,
So moved.
we go for a motion and a second, please.
A second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, for approval.
Haugen?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Hagan?
Aye.
Lind?
Aye.
Lind.
Aye. So I'll also be posted, so this is gonna be in the forum?
Be in the form.
On our website?
Our website, and that's basically our requirements.
It has to be published for 2 consecutive weeks
Okay.
for the bidding
Okay.
process.
Got my dates right, don't I? I think.
Okay, I just want it on the formal record so anybody who's listening to this can find out how they can be involved in the bid.
April 7th, proposals due Wednesday, April 14th at 11, and then we can bring it before the board in May.
Okay, approvals are due by April 14th.
Okay.
Very good. Item 7 passes. Item number 8, receive update on SP Plus dynamic parking pricing project.
So Stacy has reviewed with both Stacy and I a subcontract between SP Plus and MAG US Parking Management LLC based on our last conversation to set up the dynamic pricing, and we went through and edited quite a bit of stuff in there, changed city to MAA. There were some questions on a couple of other things. You'll see everything in red. You did get a color copy, did you not?
I did not.
For that?
We don't have the color here. Email it?
I mean, essentially, it's a subcontract, and so it's between those two parties. The substantive proposed change I made is, and I'm not even sure why it was accepted, or could have been not, to not take their ability to bring a cause of action against each other for things like intentional acts, torts, breach of contract, those kind of things. And they accepted that change, so. Other than that, and then decreasing the percentage from 27 to 25%, that change has been made as well.
Still a big healthy bite, isn't it? That's the only thing I don't like, but everything else, I'm pretty excited about the dynamic pricing model. Just 25% is a big healthy bite. Anything to do on this one? Just that was just the update.
Just an update that we've reviewed it, and Stacy, it's there.
Any
I guess
further
if you didn't
questions
get
for
this,
Stacy?
I'll send it to you.
Yes.
Sure.
It was brought up, the information provided and gathered through any of this is the property of the MAA, correct? The metadata and everything is the property of the MAA?
Because that's one of the things that I asked about. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that that's, so we have access.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes. I can go back through there and make sure that's
okay.
absolutely clear.
But it's our property.
Property.
It's our property.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Do they have the right to resell it?
I don't think they do.
That's
Because I think that was something we discussed. That's a
Section
great
of
point, though, to
that.
make sure that that's in there.
that's the delineation of our property. It's our property. We decide what can and cannot be done with that.
Customer transactions, I'll find it, I know it's in here. Let's see.
Because I thought he brought that up in the presentation. But, yeah, if it's not, hopefully it's in writing.
Page 12, intellectual property.
I can go back to the minutes too and to the presentation, but I felt like we cleared that up.
I did too, but it's good.
So I read that as their own intellectual property.
7.2, customer data.
Okay.
If even it was noted that the data will not be shared or sold, either one, to other entities other than,
Well, I think it starts with the statement that it's our information, our metadata and our property. And from there, then we control it. It's our ability to dictate whether they get to use it in any instance beyond that point.
So at 7.2, it talks about customer data and that SP Plus will share it with MAG for the purpose of using FAR customer data for purposes of communicating commercial offers, excuse me. I'll circle back on that one.
okay.
I thought they had addressed
Okay.
it.
I thought they had addressed
Any other
it.
questions?
Here's a data.
That's a good call.
Call item 9 complete. Moving on to item 10, receive draft internal operations transition plan.
What's that?
Was that all part of the revenue control system?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed 9.
Okay.
Sorry. Item 9, discuss parking access revenue control system, PRF process.
Okay, so we talked about replacing the parking equipment that's out in the lot a couple meetings ago, I believe it was. And so Jason Finch and Brad McAllister from SP Plus have sent Stacy and I a format, if you will, to create an RFP that will be in the name of the airport authority. So they're creating this thing no different than what we do with Mead and Hunt to create a plan spec and an RFP for any other project. SP Plus is acting as that agent to create that. So it would go out in our name. We'll put a public ad in the form soliciting for parking access revenue control system equipment. The estimate was $390,000, I believe, is what they had before us when they did the Zoom. So they're working on getting that RFP done. I hope to have that before you at the next board meeting to approve the RFP so we can publicly bid it and put that out there. They'll be an integral part of that because they know the vendors, they know the equipment that kind of works in this part of the country here versus, someplace in South Florida that can stand the winter. Now, another dynamic to this is, and I think General Haugen had looked at them, and if you're welcome to when you leave, is the 3 parking booths are original from 1980. Well, they were put in 85, have been there for years. They're shot. I mean, they're rusted out on the bottom. They're not really convenient for weather-wise. So going through that process, this RFP can also solicit to get quotes to replace the booths. However, it's led to a little larger conversation. I think Terry Stroh is on. I connected Terry with SP Plus because replacing booths may trigger something with city code or other things that we don't know about. So I'll let the professionals, the architects, work with SP Plus. Here's what's proposed to basically take out what's there and put in new booths. But SP Plus would also like to, and I just got some pictures last night of some parking exit plazas that they have at other airports where they have a canopy over the top which can help with signage to basically cover the booths with a canopy, like what you see at a gas station, if you will, when you're filling at the pumps. Their employees kind of would like that in the elements and the weather. So how big this process could be to consider changing out or replacing those parking booths is yet to be determined. So Terry, you did get my email, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay, and, you know, I'll let you work. SP Plus will retain you to help them through that process to make sure that replacing the booths, what's that gonna trigger with city codes and so forth, to make sure that we're on top of mechanical, electrical?
Yeah, I would guess the most part, and I would think, I know they're kind of a prefabricated deal, but I would think about the only thing that would be probably an issue would be, I'm guessing they would need to be handicapped accessible, so that there'd have to be some, size requirements inside for moving around and, a ramp to get to the door, that kind of thing. Other than that, being they're so far away from everything, they won't, there won't be too many things that will be difficult to address. I'm guessing when they're doing this, they're running into those same kind of issues. But so I look forward to seeing what they have and then seeing how we can incorporate that. So.
If you go online, there's all kinds of parking booth options that are out there. I just don't know which one are climate ready for Fargo, North Dakota. SP will know that answer.
Yeah, that's insulation's going to be the other issue. Yeah. So again, today everybody seems to be able to make anything they need for whatever climate situation you're in, but shouldn't be too difficult.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll that's just kind of an update. We'll get that before you for the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I think when you kind of look at the airport experience and our traveling public that passes through here, and what can we fix from the time that they arrive to the time that they leave, and the parking piece is hard broken right now in my mind, and it is long overdue for an upgrade on the equipment and getting it serviceable again. Like when we have a couple of lanes down where you can't even get a ticket, that's totally unacceptable for me. So as fast as we can get these things fixed, I think we'll make a better product for our passengers. Okay, moving back over to item 10. Sorry for skipping that. I put a check mark on 9 before we were done. I received a draft internal operation transition plan.
Okay, so you have the large 11 by 17 sheets. I added a couple more things last night. Stacy will get a new EIN number today, or maybe it's already been received. The one that we had timed out because there was no activity on it, so we'll get a new EIN number. But I guess just give me your feedback. This is what I believe we would submit to the commission, see if we've missed anything. We've thought about different things. Mr. Engen had me add some stuff here a couple days ago.
One of the things that I would probably make sure we identify, and this might already be taken care of by our ad agency, how we're going to show video our meetings and present it live. And I don't know if that's in the communication consultant, if they're going to look at that, how we stream our meetings.
That was the intent, but I believe right now with Zoom, they're recorded, and can't
Okay.
they take the Zoom stuff? The cameraman maybe know. I mean, you can take a Zoom and put that on YouTube and do all that, correct?
Okay.
So we are.
Perfect.
I mean,
We're doing that.
and if we need to add some more
Already.
cameras
Okay.
or something to
Yep.
capture that, I was at a couple of the conference we had down in Lincoln for EEE here about a month ago. They used an owl. I know the Fargo Dome has an owl. You put an owl
Yep.
in front, and when someone talks, it goes. Right? Is that the proper terminology? I'm asking the technology guy, but. Okay, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's that type of technology that could be.
And the reason I bring that up, because I know when we were discussing for the many meetings that we had with the city, that was one of the points that they made that was very important, is that we continue to make sure that we have open communication and with the public. The other thing that, and it's not a big deal, but, and this might be something, what sort of communications, and probably Sean, this is your communications, is there anything formal that we should do to let our United States senators know of this transition. And I know you've sent I got some responses from the email yesterday in the news release. I just didn't know if there was anything else formally that we had to let our legislators know, anybody else know. So communication's my background, so that's,
We
a
sent
big-
it to the FAA, and we'll be working
Perfect.
with the accountants at the FAA to change the EIN number
Okay.
on future grants.
Okay.
Maybe not grants issued in this year, but in like 2022 and beyond, and then
Okay.
find out the federal reporting requirement. Where we have some grants right now on the city's EIN number
Mhm.
because of the accounting system, to change that to another.
Okay.
Those are things to be determined, but those conversations are in process now with the
Okay,
FAA.
great.
So is there anything that you can think of that we're missing or need more clarity on, or, because I'm kind of stuck on this here with, change the EI number when we get that. Maybe I'll just add a thing to the fourth bullet point, prepare RFP for IT communication services and equipment, and then make sure for MA meetings, to make sure that we're covered there on the technology, whether it's Zoom.
Mr. Chairman, Sean, thanks. This is a mind-meal task. It's also a rare opportunity for an operating entity to have an ability to pause and think about what happens going forward. And so I do have just a couple of general questions here. The first is, do we want to think about a consultant to look at the workflow from top to bottom through the airport, the pieces you'll be picking up from the city, and how it all works together? And John, I appreciate you get the backbones of this, but somebody to look at that overall system. Now, I know we're under time constraints, but it's an opportunity we might want to think about, just seeing how the whole operation would fit together. Some of the questions that may come out of it, and this can be difficult going forward, do you hire services, or is there the need to create a position or two at the airport? And so, tight time frame, I recognize, but I just throw it out as something for the board to consider. And then, just on general observations as I went through here, it would really help if each line item you kind of put an estimated cost to it. Some of them are going to be negligible. Obtain employer ID number. That's Stacy at $5,000 an hour. But just so we,
Stacy, I think you just got a raise. About that.
so we can start to kind of understand what we're doing here. The other one, and I did not, without the expense ranges there, we're doing RFP on some services, we're not doing RFP, or we're going back and pulling from somewhere else. And just, I couldn't find why we're doing it that way.
Well, for the accounting and the tax services and so forth, we'd established a relationship with the accounting services, the balance tax and accounting group that ideally had led us to back in 2019, and they spent quite a bit of time already setting up those. They were going to charge at the most, maximum was $1,500 a month. So when you look at our engagement for professional services or what have you, if you change that, it was pretty well covered in that. And they're very, very, I don't know, they're just the vibe that we got.
And Sean, here, just pulling back the process that,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was done 2 years ago. And again, it leads into other questions for me that I think would select our, if we can find a contract CFO or whatever the term you want to use, and let them recommend to us the software they want to use. It seems like we're going out and buying the software. And I'm just,
But we did that background with
A year and a
what
half
most
ago.
airports,
Yeah.
a number of airports are using QuickBooks. Sioux Falls is using Sage or Peachtree. They're kind of one and the same right now. We believe that we've done that.
no,
that
and
research.
again, I'm just saying, it just, as I look through this, those are the things that kind of seem out of place. That,
To me, there's no reason to do an RFP for the consulting services that we would look for the accounting. We believe that we've already established that relationship. They're there, the cost is well within the guidelines.
You picked them from a prior RFP then,
we picked them based on the recommendation directly from Ike Bailey.
So there was no, and this goes back
Because of
to
the cost, there
process.
was no need to put up an RFP because of the cost. That's something that I could go out today based on the purchasing policy and not even request.
And Sean, this goes back to process and understanding process. Safe harbor in purchasing is to always do a request for proposal or quotes. Exceptions to that do not mean that it transfers authority to a sole decision-making person. And so, I'm just saying, we have an opportunity here. There's a bunch of different things that are changing, and saying that, you know, I'm guessing this relationship is gonna grow larger. And so, the $1,500 a month may fall under that, but it may get larger. And I just wanna encourage you, don't take purchasing policy as a way to thwart you or do anything else. It's a way to have a fair and open process for everybody. And I know there are a lot of providers of accounting services that would love to provide services here. And I just think they should all have a fair opportunity. And I'm sorry that things happened in the past, but we can't go back in purchasing and attribute prior actions as a reason to select going forward.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Mr. Cosgrove, I think one of the things is that we're on a crunch timeline, and our past experience and relationships, we have to go back to them and use them where we can to get through this year and work on this relationship with the city, maintain it, improve it, but get through this year. And some of those relationships came from our audit procedure and process and our auditors, and I don't think we can discount that. I think that's of great value.
Rick, I'm just saying, if I were offering accounting services as a business located in Fargo, North Dakota, I would certainly like to have the opportunity to throw my hat in the ring and say, I want to provide these services. To hear that it's not enough money, we don't have to do that, we've already selected somebody because they did some work for us before, that to me as an entity in the city really doesn't make me feel very good.
I think it's a valid conversation. I would, how about we propose this? I propose that we continue with the decision that Sean has made for the remainder of this year, and then send this out for.
I'm sorry, but you can't change. If you start with one, it has to be consistent when you go through. So to satisfy it, we'll put out an RFP. That's fine. We'll just do an RFP and do it and satisfy. You can't start with one today and then change midstream. With the training and the recommendations, you can't do it. We'll start from scratch and we'll go from there. You'd already made that decision before. That's fine. I respect what you're saying, John. We'll just do it and go out there. But
And I think what's critical is when you look at the past years, you have to look at accountants. Joe Blow, accountant, if he doesn't have background in airports, you know, that's going to be really critical. And maybe understanding, and I do understand this, but maybe kind of to take a look at some of those things and the requirements that it's like Bailey. When I worked with them, you have specialty areas, and John, you know that. And so I think it's wonderful, Sean, that you agreed to do this. The RFP, frankly, I support you in that. Because of the past history and because of the past experience and because of our timeline, I don't think there's a need, but I think it's gracious of you to do that.
it's not really necessary, but we can.
No, I know.
So when you look at like the IT, the budget, you know, it's out there that it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do IT. The absolute max out of pocket for us when we did this before, just for IT and a server, was $14,969, and that was all in with everything that we needed, based on hours and hours of work that Darren did with the city and these vendors from before. So, but we will go find an IT consultant somewhere. The city's offered to help Darren, and that they've assured us to find who that person is. I have no idea what they're going to charge. I have no idea, but we need one piece of paper for everybody to look at. And you know, on the telephone system, High Point was $23,688. They weren't even in the ballpark, and they refused to work with us on on-site file servers, UPS. I mean, it just didn't work. So we do have options there. That is something that will go out in an RFP. And we believe that the technology price has even gone down more. But this rumor that it's gonna cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars for IT is just ridiculous. It was out there again yesterday. It's just,
So,
it's ridiculous.
So you'll do the RFP for that. Is that, you're pleased with that?
But, and again, what I'm looking at is, you have a great opportunity here. And you can set up the airport authority going forward to operate like a small, single proprietor business. Or you can start instituting process, policy, procedures that will allow the airport to have great ability to expand and to grow and designate across the organization. Saying, take the time right now and do it.
But you make it sound like we don't have process and procedures, and that's really disturbing, John. We do have processes and procedures that we've been following for years, and we will adopt those same processes and procedures going forward.
And Sean,
It's just like you're telling everyone that we don't have processes and procedures.
Sean, this is, all right.
Sorry.
No.
That's how you're coming across, and
Well,
that's
how
an
you're
insult
coming
to everybody
across,
at the
Sean, is
table.
very defensive, saying.
It is.
You're accusing
I will
me of
defend it.
something, and I'm saying.
That's what you're saying.
No,
That's how we're
it's
taking
not.
it. That's how we
It's
all
not.
take it.
Mr. Chair?
It's not.
I think, John, the fact that we're coming through a pandemic, we're operating an entity and trying to be as efficient as we can, and at the advice of our auditor and the city's auditor, we created a relationship with a firm. There has to be some credibility there that is already established, and we use that to the best of our ability. Now, when we talk about going through a RFP process, well then, are these other CPA firms and are these other bookkeeping firms and CPA firms and are going to require us to go through that every year? That's not practical, that's not realistic. But based on your statement, that could be deemed. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think the city of Fargo or the airport authority would want that to happen. An RFP process,
What are you suggesting, Rick?
I'm
You
suggesting,
get to pick who it's gonna be.
no, I'm suggesting the relationship we've got is good enough. It falls within the realm of our purchasing requirements. We continue with that. We're on a very short timeline. And if it evolves into something bigger, then yes, then we may have to review that and revisit it. But at this point, it is not a expense large enough to be a concern to me today.
And they're gonna have to update what they provided us back in 2019. I mean, that's only fair. Things have probably changed.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So what else would you like added to this?
You know what, and maybe this is, we know, when I looked at the FAA manual, page 1,250, and found specific things when we were going through this process for, with the city. Maybe John needs to understand better the FAA regulations, all the policies and procedures, because I'm not sure if you've been able to spend some time out here, but tell you what, when you spend some time here, walk the grounds, you understand it's a lot different than my past government experience at state and local. And I think that's where, if you want to look at all the policies and procedures that each one of us have absorbed over the past few years, I think that would be really a good idea.
And purchasing policies, purchasing policies. And I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying. But, Rick, I'd go back and challenge you. You operate a small business.
Yes.
If you wanted to provide services to the municipal airport, and I said, sorry, Rick, it's not big enough. We've got somebody we're comfortable with, we're sticking with it. What would you do?
I'd be fine with it because I am a small business and I couldn't compete.
You wouldn't be fine with it, Rick? I know you really well.
John, would you like to put up for a motion to put the accounting up for an RFP? Would you
Yes,
like to
I
make
would.
a motion on that?
Sir.
Okay. Is there a second on the floor for a RFP for accounting? I can't second it, but
No, you can't.
I would.
That's
but-
the last.
Okay. Okay, there is no second on the RFP for accounting, so, any other discussion on the, term sheet? I think it's a good start, and
I do
it
too.
obviously is a living document, and if we decide that there needs to be something else, we can, obviously add to it, so.
We have to deliver this by April 15th. That's what's in the term sheet,
Okay.
so say something now or forever hold your peace, because I don't have much else to add here.
I'm happy with the way
I
it
am-
stands.
I am too.
So any other
Chair,
discussion?
the only other thing I thought of, and I imagine under intellectual property it's covered, the phone numbers used for the airport will have to be released by the city of Fargo. I believe it's under their tree of numbers.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's called out here exactly, but it is intellectual property that
Mhm.
references, you
Okay.
know, when people call us, so.
I'll just put a separate line item.
All right, so we're gonna add the estimated expense column, and was there anything else? But there was a second one. John, there was a second one that you wanted on there?
Pardon me?
You said you wanted to add an expense column on here?
Yeah.
Estimated expense?
And the suggestion would be that we kind of, and I know it's difficult, but that we should be trying to quantify what the cost factors are.
Okay,
And again, I don't know how we can do it, but I would like to see us consider looking at workflow from the standpoint, is there a
Workflow.
position or two that can be added versus adding a bunch of contract providers?
so hire versus subcontract.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we can look at that.
I think once we get the numbers in there too, that's gonna help. So I know when I've interviewed and looked at all the airports, they all have different aspects. In other words, if we spend $1,200 a month for bookkeeping, you're gonna have to, if you hire internally, you know, it's gonna be more than that position. And that's where looking and evaluating a lot of the airport structures and their personnel, everything is different. And, you know, there's some airports where their overhead is so high and they're smaller than us and they're just not being as efficient. If you looked at the last study that was done, one of the things that came across and loud and clear was how efficient we are, not only employee-wise, but budget-wise. And I think, you know, we're doing a good job, and I don't have anything against that, but I think, again, taking a look at what the other airports do is good, but also, we've got, you know, so many we've got so many good things happening here of the way we have been doing it and currently doing it, and the cost that, putting that in there, I think will really help, because then we'll see, you know, okay, maybe this is something that we really need to look at, hiring internally.
Okay. Very good. Anything else for item 10? Item 10 is complete. Item 11, receipt of 2021 Airport United legislative priorities.
So last week, AAA had a online virtual legislative conference. They brought in different congressmen and representatives. Normally we meet in person in DC that week and then have chapter officer meetings and in the course of this conference. So this is just for your information. This is provided to the delegation each year. So Hovind, Kramer, and Armstrong get the same information that I provided to them. I think the Airport Association North Dakota does as well. So just let you know as a whole where airports are with their legislative priorities, along with still countering the airlines' objections to increasing the passenger facility charge, which has been on the AAE agenda for a number of years now, to go from $450 to something greater for the PFC. So that's, if you have any questions, I know they update this maybe twice a year, or if there's something significant that happens during the congressional session, the federal session.
Okay.
And we have the I guess the next item is the legislative update that Matt Ramsey, Jordan is the Secretary Treasurer that's here. So this is the last legislative update that they provided for bills that we've been following through the Airport Association. I think the loan program bonding bill, trying to get airports eligible for the Bank of North Dakota revolving loan fund. Haven't been successful with that yet, but we're still monitoring that. The SIRN bill, or siren bill, I know Chief Bush has an active interest in that with our radio systems. City of Fargo, there's been others that have been favorable with that. House Bill 1214, the airline taxation issue. United found a loophole last year, and we worked with Ryan Rauschenberger, the state tax commissioner, with all the commercial service airports on closing a loophole, which in the current state statute, if you do not have any mainline landings in the state, you don't owe the property tax. So for us, it costs each airport quite a bit of money. But all of the airports have agreements directly with the mainline carrier, and Ryan and his team, along with the Airport Association, found a way to close that loophole. So hopefully that today at 8:30 they had a hearing this morning. So I'll be interested to hear what the Senate Finance and Taxation Committee decided on that. Eminent domain, that was opposed and failed right away. That didn't move out. House Bill 1324. I provided a letter, City of Fargo, City of Grand Forks, the Airport Association, the League of Cities. That was just really bad written legislation on changing eminent domain. Senate Bill 2006, the Aeronautics Bill. That's basically the budget for the North Dakota Aeronautics Commission that we've always supported each year. And that seems to be moving forward. That hearing was yesterday, and as far as I know, that came out well. The one that was passed last week, Senate Bill 2149, that came out of committee, do not pass, but with the efforts of Representative Nathy from Bismarck, Cindy Schreiber-Beck from down in the Wahpeton area, and then Representative O'Brien from Grand Forks, they were able to get that to pass. So that will allow us now, once the governor signs it, to enter into an agreement with Uber and Lyft to facilitate a fee for drop-off, a fee for pickup. But we haven't been able to do. I think North Dakota is one of 2 states that was left in the country to not allow their airports to enter into some type of agreement to do that. We'll also then work with, prior to COVID, Darren and I worked a little bit with Steve Sprague and Joe Pagel down at the auditor's office. They're trying to change the taxi ordinance and how they're permitted and identified operating taxis. And it would appear that we will have to do some type of an airport permit or fee for taxis, hotel shuttles, and then limousine services if those do arrive here, in order to keep the playing field fair if we enter into these agreements with Uber and Lyft. And what we would charge, I'm not sure. There's some talk of trying to keep it consistent within the commercial surface airports, or specifically Fargo, Bismarck, Minot, and Grand Forks, where they do have TNCs, whether it's $2 a drop-off, $2 a pickup, or something of that nature. In the country, it ranges from some airports just doing drop-offs, some airports just doing pickups, some doing both, from $1 to $4. It depends on where you're at in terms of capturing some of that revenue.
Sean, I have a question. You've been working on this for a number of years. How long has this been going? I mean, how many years has this been going on?
This is the 3rd legislative session for TNCs, I believe. We lost by 6 votes in the last session, and there's just a lot of education to do on this. And Enterprise Rent-A-Car, their lobbyists did a lot of work with the legislature to help as well, because the people that would traditionally come down the escalator and walk to the car rental counter were bypassing, going out to the curb and getting an Uber or Lyft. Of course, the parking lot sees that as well. So,
Which, that brings me to another point that I've been thinking of. I know we've had 3 years where we did our surveys, on-site surveys, and I know last year we did not. But I'd be really interested, and I don't, just even for discussion point, if we could do that same as we continue moving past pandemic. Because I think that's, if we could do another survey where, we looked at drop-offs, we looked at parking, because I think that's gonna be critical as we look forward and possibly expand the parking. And I'd be interested, just like you said, with Uber and Lyft, when this comes through, because as you know, the past 3 years of surveys, it was between 3 and 5% of using Uber and Lyft of those 1,400 that were surveyed. So I don't know, I just think that might be something that we put on our radar, and maybe it's not right now, but I know it was fairly inexpensive to do that.
yeah, the SB Plus covered all of those costs. So the earliest that they will do that will be this December.
Okay,
Potentially in July, but I don't know that they will. We'll see. And I don't know that we have much Uber and Lyft traffic out here right now. They used to stage on the
Yep,
crossover road
yep.
south of here. I very rarely see a
Yep.
car out there now, so I just don't know what's happening with the TNCs locally.
They're
We
way
are starting
down.
to see some taxi
Yep.
services come back, but Uber and Lyft
well,
are.
and I was thinking about it too, as because I remember some of the comments about the taxi services that people felt uncomfortable, and I mean, I know that that's kind of in the future, but I really do think that to get back to some sort of so we can see what our clients are really thinking, and as their habits may have changed over the pandemic.
Yeah, I'd like to see it as normalized as
Yep.
possible, so I probably would wait until
Yep.
holiday travel season.
Well, and I think people need to realize, when you look at parking, the last studies, over 50% of people are dropped off. And a lot of people just didn't, that information was really eye-opening to many of us. Depends on the season, of course, but, okay.
Okay, moving on, item 13, airport construction and security update. Almost done.
Terry?
Hi, Terry.
Well, I think my mic's working today. Sorry, I apologize about the last meeting.
Loud and clear.
We're getting close on the new SRE building. Basically, a lot of final stuff. So painting items, installing pans and metal stairs and pouring those, connecting HVA systems, plumbing systems, electrical systems. I had talked to Brady once before, actually right before the last meeting, that I was unable to communicate with you. And he was suggesting that occupancy for the building would probably be around the 5th of April, the week of the 5th of April. They are doing a bunch of polishing of floors that we're requiring for them, and so I think it sounds like by the end of next week, he feels like they'll be in a pretty good place to be able to have the city come out and look through it, and being, it's a large, pretty open facility, not a lot of rooms to go through. It shouldn't take very long. They might issue a conditional occupancy permit because technically right now we still don't have our, they've got part of the retainage pond done, but they don't have it all done. And they might give us the ability to get in the building with a contingency that we come back to them and tell them to come out and look at the retainage pond when it's done, and that's kind of weather related. So as soon as the ground thaws out and stuff, we could get that going. Most all the hardscape and that stuff's all done. So really, that's one of the last things that we'll be doing. The addition, they're painting the joist deck and pouring concrete stairs. They're completing conduit for electrical and ductwork for HVAC. Looks like they're getting some power in for the crane system and completing the overhead crane installation and load testing that this week. So getting close.
Sounds great.
Questions?
I have no questions.
No.
Thank you, Terry.
Can I ask, is it possible to, I think once people see that facility and see, is it possible that we could have an open house for chamber members, and so people can actually see how huge this equipment is? And because I don't think people realize that, and I think to make them aware of it, because that's going to help people understand the workings of the airport as well.
Always an excuse to have cake, right?
You got it.
Mr. Chair, I think to be fair to everybody, they should have seen the old SRE
Before,
building
yep.
with the 3 inches or 4 inches of space between the equipment to appreciate the skills of those equipment operators.
And we
then
could
the
see it before and
opportunity for the new
afterwards.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That is for sure. The only thing is it was a lot dark and dingier. Now it's really bright in there because we relit it.
Well, you took pictures, though, I'm sure, so.
But it is, those pieces of equipment are
Oh,
super
huge.
impressive, and the people who drive them are incredibly
Yeah.
talented.
No,
Okay.
we want
Jeff's got air cargo. What's your conversation
Thank you,
with
Terry. I
Northern?
think I don't think we have any further questions for you, Terry.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I had just met with Phil Duginsky here last week, as a matter of fact, and I just, on a separate issue, I just brought up in conversation their plans for the resuming on the cargo apron. They're in the midst of putting a schedule together right now. He didn't commit to any date or anything, but obviously they're eager to get out there as soon as possible once, load restrictions come off and that kind of thing. So we're praying for an early spring. He did say that Saline Brothers will probably be in there in April. There's some valve manhole structures that they need to install for the glycol system. So there'll be, kind of odds and ends through April before the big ramp up from Northern Wind Sound. So hopefully once Phil gets that schedule to me, I can share it with all of you just to map out the course of the rest of the project. So.
Outstanding. Looking forward to the end of that.
Yep. Any other questions?
All the users on the South GA are also looking forward to that.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys know, but the South General Aviation Airport area is where all the cargo is kind of sitting right now, and everybody who's got hangars back there, it's very tight to get in and out of that area. So,
Very congested.
See if, Commissioner Strand is on. I don't know if he has any comments or any updates.
Commissioner Strand, do you have any updates for us?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't, but really great discussion today, and I guess I'll say this: we're going into a new era, and you have our commitment, my commitment, to be the best bridge I can be from the city over to the airport authority to ease in this transition and to help assure that we're all aiming toward the best future we can. So thanks for all your work on all this, and it's going to be a really productive, exciting time to go into positively, so thank you.
Thank you,
I
John.
second that, John. I
Me too.
very much look forward to this new relationship that we're forging here together, and I hope it to be very seamless and very complimentary. So thank you for your work on this.
And John, did you have any recommendations on the transition plan in terms of the format?
I have no recommendations or changes to recommend at all.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just two other things before you do that,
Roger.
the last one. So just before you get to 14, so there's two other things. One, and I'll get you the copies. We received an estimated special assessment notice for North University Drive, and of the local share, the airport authority is responsible for 81% of the local share, if my calculations are correct, Stacy. So we've captured that. Stacy has a copy of it. We've sent out to our FAA folks for review, because this probably will trigger the same response from the FAA, is that they can special assess the areas where there's runway protection zones, areas of non-development, but we have no ability to pay it. So I think the earlier that the folks in the city understand that, the better. It's the same as what happened on 25th Street North. The FAA said, yeah, you can special assess it, but the airport has no obligation to pay it because there's no immediate benefit. And there's a lot of the areas that you can see along North University Drive, especially the runway protection zone. There's an area up here that's special assessed for future planning. So how that's all going to shake out, I'm not certain. But the area of 36th Avenue North here, we've got the file on that as well. So they can't special assess us for any improvements on 36th Avenue North. We could issue a letter today and they'd have to remove that avenue. That was the agreement with the FAA and the city way back when. So there are some unique situations there, so I figured the earlier that we get started on what the FAA's guidance is going to be on that, the better. So just for that information.
That was roughly $3 million, 3.2.
I believe so. We'll send that out to you. I just got the notices last week.
We are 81% of that.
I believe that based on the estimated cost, that's correct, 81%.
And so we would just go through the same process. The city can certainly assess. They have that authority. But will the FAA allow it? It's up to them to make the determination. In the event the answer is no, because there is no immediate benefit, then we enter into a deferral agreement. So the assessment exists, it's just deferred until such time as the FAA comes in and says there is an immediate benefit to the airport. And I think we have a review date on those yearly,
I believe so.
and then they exist for a period of 20 years with renewal dates thereafter.
The final thing, and chatting with Tammy, she was a member of the airport PEC, is our equipment operator 3s, our equipment technician 2, and our building attendants were the next thing for the PEC to take a look at. I'm not certain if that's necessary, but nonetheless, they're in a pay range right now that is 30% from step 1 to step 11. All of the other employees are in a 36% range, so whether or not that's something that this board can do or the PEC has to revisit, find the midpoint for each of those pay ranges and get them up to speed with their coworkers for the internal equity part of it. That still needs to be done. We do have some employees that are maxed out in their step 11 that probably wouldn't be getting the benefit of their fellow employees.
I was saying the precedent had already been set with the PEC, and I think that this board, my understanding after the term and the arrangement was that the PEC was no longer in existence. That was my understanding. So, and because the precedent had been set with that 36%, I mean, then we can have all the employees the same for the airport. Otherwise, they won't be. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, should we maybe though have the APEC define the midpoint for us?
I think we're able to do that because we did that last time. I mean, we
Tammy,
could,
I think that we're under the current structure that we're under. We're still under the original MOU, which would have the PEC still in charge until January 1st.
but we were not going to
Am I wrong?
review their salaries. Is that correct?
Well, there are periodic market surveys that are done by Human Resources downtown. The most recent one for this group that hasn't been evaluated was the equipment technician too. So you remember our mechanic last year then was moved up to match the other equipment technician twos after that market survey was done. I don't know where equipment operator 3s and building attendants sit. The airport building attendants are unique. They're not like the building attendants at the Civic or City Hall or other locations because they have airfield responsibilities, runway inspection, and the security detail. So they're a little bit unique in
So
trying to
there would
find.
be two different things then. If there has been an updated study with the city, then yes, the PEC should evaluate it, I would think. But if not, the 36% spread would just be a housekeeping thing. So,
So I'll just chime in.
Yep.
So the memorandum of understanding back from January 2020 is still in play, and that's where this is fluid. And both the city and the airport, we're just kind of, what steps can we keep
Yep.
taking forward by term sheet number 1,
Yep.
transition sheet. That's probably one of the next discussions to have with
Okay.
the city. I don't know if it's conceived that we agree at a amended MOU,
okay,
and that's set to start, like when is that set to start? My inkling would be January 1, 2022, and that's where the airport PEC would then be terminated.
I mean, I'm fine either way. I just, if it's just a
Disband it.
housekeeping issue, then I don't think the PEC has to get involved. But because that's where we looked at salaries and went through the DBM process for all of them. I mean, if there's the belief that we need to do that, we can call on the PEC
I mean, our
again.
past experience, so in the winter, we hired the equipment operator just for the snow season.
Okay,
We top out at $29.74 for an EO3. And I think there's a lot of people that look at it and say they aren't gonna touch it for $30, $35 an hour.
okay.
So I mean, we're close maybe on the lower end, maybe at 30 somebody looks at it, but we don't have the ability to hire someone off the street that's a really good equipment operator that I'll do it for 32. We don't have the ability
Okay.
to do that. So, and I can talk with Ben Dow to see what kind of issues they're having hiring equipment operators or Terry at the landfill, but
So it
that's
seems
one
like
way to go.
these operators, because it's kind of like the firefighters, they have different sets of they're different than what the city actually has. And they have different qualifications because of what they're doing. Because,
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I think any of our equipment operators could go out and plow streets
right,
and avenues, but we can't take anyone
from there, right.
to go on the airfield.
Okay.
That's a whole different
That's a
world.
whole different thing,
The
yeah.
tower, the airfield familiarization, the FAA required training is different. It takes some time to bring somebody up to speed, and we've done that, but they don't last very long. They end up going somewhere else after they see the challenges.
So
You
then-
really have to be at the airport
Yeah.
to understand how to operate on the airfield. It's different.
So-
And the equipment's different too.
The equipment's different, and so if that is the case, then the PEC really should look at it because of those differences.
I would defer to the PEC.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
I
at least
just-
have them,
I just wanted another meeting like that.
there you go. Excellent.
And you know, once Eric Johnson comes back from vacation, you know, actually has more boots on the ground, I think we can start having
Yeah.
those moving forward discussions. I'm not sure it's even really been conceived, other than we know as a firm end date of
Yeah.
December 31.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion would be that somebody reach out to Jane Pettinger. I'm certain that the PEC would be more than willing to wrap up things and go forward, but I think she's also retiring, so we may want to make sure she's still available and for how long. But my sense is, of course, we'd be willing to go back at it and wrap up our affairs while your contract and MOU is still in place.
I absolutely agree. So, Tammy, can I task you with contacting
Yep.
Jane and firing up the PEC one
Yep.
last time? Get some closure on these on this topic.
So you can give me those positions
Yes.
if you want to email me that. Thank you. Yep, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Strand?
No, that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike?
Just airport update on the air show.
Thank you.
coming up. I have got 2 Blue Angels coming in this Thursday, with F-18. They're going to do a walkthrough of some of the areas around here, and they do basically it's a quick site visit. But you'll see a F-18 flying around the pattern here. Also, I'd like to also mention that the Air Show Committee has done a contact with both the state and county officials on a COVID review of what we need to do to mitigate COVID issues. And they've given us some very good feedback, and they're going to do another review at May timeframe before the air show to see where we're at nationwide. The real unknown in all of this is TSA. We don't know what they're going to require on a federal mandate. But the air show is pressing ahead.
Pressing ahead, what are the dates on that again?
The dates are 24 and 25 July. So we're kind of late in the season, which is a good thing. It'll be warmer temperatures and the like. And of course, everything will be outdoors.
Yeah.
So there was nothing inside. So some of the state requirements for distancing and the maximum crowd size probably will be off by then, according to best guesstimates. But it looks as though there should be no problem hosting the air show, which means probably 30,000 people be here for the weekend.
Outstanding.
And Jeff's helped me with a map over there, looking at size-wise, we have 1.5 million square feet to
Good.
put people in.
Always look forward to the air show.
And then there's
Thank you. Yes, Stacy.
just 2 additional things on my end. Going back to that subcontract with SP Plus, and I call it MAG, taken a little bit off guard on the whole ownership of the metadata. I mean, this is the subcontract between those 2 entities, so I will pull the contract between Faro and SP Plus
Okay.
and isolate those provisions, and then just compare up against the subcontract. And then the only other thing with regard to putting out the RFPs, looking at my calendar, we might be able to get that sent today or tomorrow. So I mean, just the ability, if we can get it published starting next Wednesday and then the Wednesday after instead of the Wednesday after and the Wednesday after. Because what I understand is you have to have the publication to the forum by a certain time on a Wednesday.
No, it's 5 p.m. Friday now for a Wednesday publication.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I'll just double check the dates. But
Okay, great.
that's all I had, just housekeeping.
Okay, last item on the agenda today is the resolution for the appreciation to the board member, Major General Michael Haugen. So, what do we have for this one?
Well,
pass the
there's a couple
resolution.
things. First, General Haugen has got a really prestigious award last Friday, and I think you guys should be aware of it. Tell them about the day, you and Mr. Brashani, okay?
Well, it was presented by the North Dakota National Guard and the association. It was called the Always Ready, Always There Award, which is their motto. And it just is for community activity. And Dr. Brashani got a Bridge Builder Award. And well, it wasn't specifically him, it was specifically NDSU. And for all of the ongoing efforts of supporting the National Guard, both Air and Army here.
That is great, congratulations.
And I should also mention that an honorary commander who is sitting here, Sean Toberstein, was also recognized.
Oh,
So as the 119th honorary commander.
that's
Second
awesome.
stint. Just
Congratulations.
finished 2 years, now I get 2 more years.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Second tour of duty.
You know, you have been such a integral part to this whole airport authority and the airport and everything for so many years, and I know you've got big plans for coming up, and I know I will miss our candid talks and your professionalism and your deep insight. I think that's what's so important, especially, you know, when I was appointed and worked with Steve, and you know, you guys really helped bring that knowledge to help this moving forward, and I think I just applaud you. Congratulations.
I agree. I want to thank you for all the leadership that you provided, especially during your tour, your time as the chairman of the board, and all the discussions and the negotiations that we went through with the city. And it was invaluable for your insight and your experience that you brought to the board. So thank you very, very much.
Well, if I could take another minute.
Yes.
I want to, for the record, thank the mayor for nominating me, and for the city commission for approving me 5 years ago to be on this. You know, there's a saying that says you're never too young to lead, and you're never too old to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you take the proper mix of learning and leadership and combine them, you get wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say yesterday's press release reflects wisdom on part of the city commission and the airport authority. And so I, in my 5 years, in some small way, hope I added some wisdom to that decision making.
Indeed you did. So thank you very much. Thank you very
So
much.
you just need an official motion for
All
it.
right, can I get
So
a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Seconded, all right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain.
That is all we have for the agenda. Any other items up for discussion that anybody would like to talk about? Okay, that is all I have for the meeting. I call, can I get a motion for the adjournment?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, call the, we have to vote on that? All right, motion is received and meeting adjourned.